Welcome to Wise Move, where we dive into real estate, real life, and real wisdom. I'm your host, Meredith Buckland, a top realtor in the greater Atlanta area with over 12 years of experience. I have had the privilege to help hundreds of clients navigate their moves successfully while gaining a wealth of wisdom along the way. As Einstein said, wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. So join me as I connect with clients, colleagues, and industry experts to discuss market trends, share valuable advice, along with real-life stories that can help make every move a wise move. Welcome back to Wise Move. Today, I am thrilled to introduce Crystal Hughes. She's founder of VVS Financial Agency right here in Atlanta. And her story is so powerful. I want you to hear from her and learn from her. She started out as a special education teacher, and now she's a six-figure entrepreneur teaching families how to use life insurance as a tool for wealth building and legacy creation. I found it interesting too that through her work, she has helped channel nearly 10 million back into the community, which has empowered others to make wise financial moves that will really change generations. So, Crystal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Meredith. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, and it's so great to have you on today. I'm so excited to hear your story. I know other people will, and businesswoman to businesswoman, it's interesting to see our different paths and how they've grown. And certainly I was intrigued as I looked at some of your background, and being a special education teacher takes a whole nother level of an individual. And hats off, even just in the teaching field itself, I'm admiring so much of that. So I'd love to just hear your story about going from that background of teaching and then eventually into the financial realm. So tell me how all of that began.
First and foremost, thank you so much for blessing me with the opportunity to be on your platform. It is truly an honor. I'm super grateful for that. My story is super interesting, so I'll try to keep it brief and clear as possible. But essentially, I was born in a country called Guyana. I came to the United States when I was 7 years old with my mom and my younger brother, who was 5 at the time. And my mom eventually had 2 more children, which are my younger sisters. And I'm the oldest of 4 for her. She was a single mom for majority of the time that she raised us. And since I was really young, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I never actually wanted to be a teacher. And once I graduated high school, I left New York. I was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I got accepted to Spelman College here in Atlanta. So that's what first brought me to Atlanta. Went to Spelman, did my undergrad at Spelman, and my plans were to transition to law school, but sometimes God redirects us in different paths, and I wasn't ready to go to law school. I took the LSAT and I didn't get a score that I liked. So I decided to go back to New York and get a job teaching to make money. And that's how I got into teaching. I thought that I would have been teaching part-time. 1 year turned into 2 years. My job had a apprentice program that allowed them to sponsor 75% of our master's degree. So I said, if I'm going to be here for some time, why not get a master's degree? Got a master's degree, was going to school and actually going to work. And 2 years turned into 3 years. And before you knew it, I was teaching elementary students with special needs for roughly 7 years in Brooklyn, New York, in the charter school system, blindly, day in, day out, working. Although it wasn't something I didn't plan to do, I fell in love with the children that I taught. I've taught children that were autistic, emotionally disturbed, speech impediments, any kind of different learning need that you can think of. I've experienced those type of children. And the reality is that I got into the insurance industry literally starting off as a client in my 20s. I reached a point in my life where I wanted to get more educated about finances. I wanted to get more educated about life insurance because I always heard of it and knew of life insurance. However, I wasn't necessarily around an environment that was able to educate me more about this. And I reached out to someone on social media who went to Morehouse College, and I saw that they had made a transition into that industry. And most of us, if we're going to get a product or a service, we're going to go with the person who we know does it. And that's what I did. And I hopped on a Zoom call. That 30-minute Zoom call changed my entire life. And I applied for a life insurance policy for the first time. And it wasn't just an ordinary policy. It was a policy where I was able to actually put my money into it, and it can grow with interest and it can grow tax at sheltered, and I can actually borrow against it. I didn't know that you can even do that with insurance. So I was very intrigued. I was like, how is it that I have not one but two degrees, and I've never learned anything like this? And the person that, helped me with my policy, they introduced me to the opportunity of getting into the industry. They showed me the income they were going to make off of just helping me get into the proper plan. And what they were about to make, it took me 2 weeks to make as an educator in New York. And I was shocked, impressed. I was like, wow, how is it that you're able to do that? And I was open to learning about how I can possibly do that too. And that's literally the sparked the beginning stages of me actually getting into the business, me just wanting to get insurance.
Yeah, that was certainly your kind of light bulb
Yes.
moment, when you're realizing, oh my goodness, there's some potential out here and some
Yes.
security. What fears or challenges though did you experience as you're kind of stepping away from the classroom, and then how did you overcome
So the
those?
reality is that I didn't initially step away from the classroom. I was actually a
Okay.
full-time teacher doing the industry part-time. I was living in New York, and I remember being in my classroom with the children and actually having my trainings, because in any industry or business, you have trainings to teach you. You have a mentor that teaches you and guides you throughout, teaching the skill sets of how you are able to actually run this business. So I didn't step away initially. I was doing it as a full-time teacher. I got licensed within my first month, and 4 months after getting licensed, I was making money part-time. What actually happened was shortly after the pandemic, I walked into my job on the last day of school, and I was abruptly let go. No heads up, no fair warning or anything like that. It was something that just was super unexpected. I had never experienced the loss of a job ever in my 31 years of living, and it was an eye-opening experience, and it taught me one valuable lesson, that until you actually build something for yourself, that you own, you'll always be working to build someone else's dreams and goals. And that is what actually sparked the transition for me to go into business full time, because there was no security with my income anymore. And I learned that through losing my main source of income. And at the time, I was the one that financially took care of my entire family, my sisters, my mom. Coming from an immigrant background, there was a lot of weight and pressure on my shoulder to, of course, make money. And once I didn't have that, when you're under pressure, you will either actually move in a certain direction, or you would run. And I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And because I already made income part time in the business, I saw that there was an opportunity there to make more money. It just required me to invest more of my energy and my time to actually scale the income I was making at my job. And that's actually what allowed me to go full time in business. So I think God allowed me to lose the job because He knew that I didn't want to teach anymore. But I didn't have the courage to leave it until I had another way to make money. And He allowed that to happen. And, it ended up being one of the biggest blessings for me, because, I was able to step out in faith and just, see what I can do. And by the grace of God, I was able to replace the income I made as a teacher and also scale my income just by being an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, your income isn't guaranteed. You can solve to make your income. There's no cap on what you can make, and that was new for me. But it
Right.
was also empowering, because once I was able to see with my own eyes that, wow, I did this, I can do this, it changes your confidence in how you navigate through the rest of your entire life.
Yeah, I so much that you said in there too. Sometimes we stay in our comfort zone, and we know there's possibilities, we know there's things we can do, but we stay in the safe zone. And then sometimes our hand and our life, we're forced into a new decision, into a new path that is out of our comfort zone. And it was certainly, it wasn't your choosing that day when you walked in, but it was divinely important that all this take place, because it did set you on a new path. And then you also needing to support your family. I mean, there wasn't just this, well, let's see if I can make it. It's, I have to do this. And that kind of that hunger that need to feed is so powerful that it does drive you to be very hardworking in that. And again, you also have to have that grit and
Yes.
determination. I mean, sometimes you have to bring a lot of work ethic to the table, and it doesn't just happen. People don't just call you, and your clients don't just come. It takes
Yeah,
work.
absolutely. I agree 1,000%.
Yeah, and I think that's true, especially too in real estate. A lot of times people will call me and they'll be like, "Hey, I'm thinking of getting into it." They see a non-reality TV show, and they're just unlocking doors, and clients are just calling, and I want to buy a $5 million home, and that is not the reality. And it's so many years of relation building and hard work and hours, and nothing comes to fruition until it's finalized and done. So you're basically working with no salary until you know, close something. And all of that makes you kind of have to have that grit and determination. Yeah, I will tell you that life insurance is one of those topics that I think most of us, we hear about, we know very little about. We know, okay, we might need to have that in place if something happens. But I think you've been quoted as saying that life insurance isn't about death, it's
Yeah.
about leverage. And I would love to have you break down a little bit this kind of confusing, intimidating topic of life insurance, and also how it can be a living wealth tool that you've
Yeah, most
discovered.
definitely. Well, first and foremost, when it comes to the subject matter of insurance, I'm a firm believer that insurance, regardless of whatever it is, it does make the world go round. If you look at America today, we have insurance on our cars. We have insurance on our apartments. We have insurance on our homes. We have insurance on jewelry. All of these materialistic items that really don't go with us when we're no longer here. But the one thing that people question to insure is the most valuable thing out there, the most valuable asset, which is your entire life. And even myself, before I got into the industry, my understanding of life insurance was that, when Crystal passes away, I know that, money should be transferred over to whomever is my beneficiary. But when I got into the industry, I learned that it was a lot more than that. I learned that there are ways that you're able to actually use life insurance as a tool to be beneficial to you while you're alive, whether it's for growing your money or even a sense of security if you're sick, ill, or disabled. So the old type of life insurance, like I said, most people just know it for purposes of death because that's the most basic understanding that anyone has. However, there's two features of life or two ways you can leverage life insurance while you're alive. So the first way is in the form of something called living benefits. Not all life insurance policy have this particular feature, but it is a feature that, God forbid, you get diagnosed with a terminal illness, a chronic illness, a critical illness, or a critical injury, such as cancer, heart attack, stroke, kidney failure. Let's say, God forbid, you get into an accident and it leaves you disabled where you're unable to perform at least two out of the major daily activities, such as eating or bathing or just being able to move from one place to another by yourself. This warrants you to be able to actually file a claim with your insurance company, and you're able to get up to 80% of your coverage paid out to you as the insured while you're alive. Most people don't know that this is out here because it is a new feature of life insurance, and you have to start asking questions about, does my insurance coverage actually have this in it? Because you have to ask these questions. I've come across so many clients. Yeah, I have a policy. I'm like, what do you have? They have no idea what they have. Does it have this? They have absolutely no idea what they have. Paying for something that comes out of their account every month, that's super important, and there's no priority there to figure out, is it beneficial to me in this way? So that's one example of how individuals are actually able to leverage it while they're alive. Now that's from a health standpoint, if you are a sick, ill, or disabled, because when you think about it, when most of us get sick, ill, or disabled, what happens to our income? It either decreases or it stops completely. And this is a way to be able to secure your daily living needs in the event that you are impaired by a certain degree. Now, the second way that people are actually able to use life insurance while they're alive is in the form of permanent life insurance policies. When you think about life insurance policies will always fall under one of two categories. It's either going to be a temporary coverage, which is what you call a term policy, And then there are permanent policies, right? Which are policies that are structured to last your entire life. Permanent policies are so complex and nuanced because not only do they give you coverage on yourself, but there's an additional feature on them called a cash value, which is what we refer to as a savings account. This cash value mirrors the stock market, right? It grows with interest anywhere from 4% to 12% annually on average, depending on the indexing strategy. And one of the also features is that it grows tax sheltered. Most people don't know that life insurance is a tax shelter tool, right? Any money that you put into a life insurance policy, right? There's no taxes on what you put in. There's no taxes on what you pull out, and there's no taxes on what your beneficiary receives at the time of your death. So with those features, people can leverage, right, this type of permanent policy as a way to actually grow their money at a higher interest rate than most traditional savings accounts. And taxes. We can't escape taxes, but this is a tool where it allows you to legally alleviate the most amount of taxes as possible. And I've seen people use these products just to build wealth. I've seen people use it in real estate. I even had clients that were real estate investors, realtors, and they're able to leverage this as a tool and platform to be able to do the things that they want to do. Because that's the reality of it. You can use these products to do whatever you want to do. If you want to use it to travel, you can leverage the money to do that. If you want to leverage it to purchase a home, you can do so. If you want to leverage it to purchase a car, you have the autonomy to leverage it how you want if it's structured correctly and you fund it correctly. It can do some amazing things. And those are the two main ways that you're actually able to leverage these policies while you are alive, from a health standpoint and from a financial standpoint, in getting a policy that allows you to actually dump your money in there and actually grow with interest and avoiding the most amount of taxes as possible.
Yeah, and I think that is probably something that most of us are unaware of is, we put it in there for the security of if something down the road but we don't think about the ability to the tax benefits and then also leveraging it, like you said, at
Yes.
times when maybe we need some extra cash to do something and able to leverage it. What though, Crystal, would you say, like, as you deal with individuals and families, is there a particular age that's better, or is there, what are the misconceptions there, or what are the realities there about when do we start and how do we start, and
That's a great
all of
question. I
that?
think that the reality is that the younger that you start, the better, because those products are for a long-term growth of your money. You can leverage it for many different reasons. So you have short-term growth, short-term accounts, that emergency accounts people use to just dabble in, God forbid, income, loss of a job, you get sick. Then you have accounts that you use for long-term growth of your money, right? When it comes to age, I personally think the younger you are that you started out, the better. But the reality is that there is a lack of education when it comes to it, because parents can take out these policies on their children and then transfer it over to their children once they reach a certain age where they're a little bit more responsible, of course. But there's a lack of awareness. And in my opinion, the younger you are, the better, because now you have the opportunity to allow your money to grow and compound, right, over time. And when you are ready to leverage it, the can you imagine 10 years worth of growth of money that you just allowed to sit there? You funded it in the right way, and now when you're 18 or 21, you have more access to opportunities because you have capital to leverage, versus the traditional 18, 19-year-old, depending on the environment that you were raised in or the class that your family exposed you to. You either have access to certain opportunities or you don't. And the reality, although money isn't everything, it is a tool that is needed to advance and accelerate your growth in life. Money gives you access to a lot of things. It gives you the ability to choose the path that you want to go on. Do I want to go to college? Do I want to go to school? Do I want to start a business? We're seeing so many different people nowadays where they're not taking the traditional route to build wealth. Most people now are looking like, I need to have a business. I need to be an entrepreneur. And in terms of the people that I come across clientele that are anywhere from 35 to 60, 70, almost 80 years old. And when I sit with them, I'm like, wow, how are you this age? And it's wow, like you don't realize how misinformed people are and how late people wait and to receive this information. And it's sometimes there's some clients where it's like, wow, like I can't even get you into this product due to the health concerns you have now or your budget or whatever you're working with. The older you are, the more expensive some of these products are. The younger you are, the more affordable it is. And of course, these insurance companies, although you can use these products to grow money, they do look at four things to determine your eligibility to get approved. We need life insurance, but we still have to qualify for it just like everything else, just like a home, just like an apartment, just like getting a car. There are qualifications we have to meet. So they look at your age, they look at your medical records, they look at your criminal records. I didn't know this until I got into the industry. They even look at your driving records. They look at these, any kind of sketchy things in these areas, you're a red flag. And some people, depending on the lifestyles, the lifestyle they've lived, you're now uninsurable. You can't even, you're now removed from being able to have this opportunity to actually build wealth because you did not leverage it when you were younger, right? The younger you are, the more healthier you are. Even if you do develop health concerns or you start to live a crazy lifestyle, that product is set in stone. So in my perspective, the younger the better. I wish my parents would have had something like this on me when I was younger, because life probably would have looked a little different for me when I was growing up. But we don't have any control over the lives our parents live, but we do have the opportunity to change that story and to be able to create a new story or a new narrative for the next generation, our children and our children's children. To answer your question, the younger the better. For me, I did it in my 20s, but that's as young as I could do it because my parents, who were not even from this country, wasn't given access to that information.
Yeah, and that's, kind of gaining that knowledge, and it's kind of the taking advantage of that information and acting on it. And the younger, and like you said too, all the important things to consider, just like when we go to get ready to purchase a home and all the things that we need to make sure that we're doing, the same thing with the life insurance or the other insurance areas, the greater the risk, that we are, the more negative it's going to be. And so kind of assessing how we live and, what decisions we make, even as a young person, that is going to impact our future. And all of that. Sometimes we, as young people, and we've all been there, I'm not young anymore, but at those points, we kind of feel like life is just way ahead of us. But yet, no, it's every day making the right decisions for today that impact tomorrow's decisions and the future actions and reactions of that. So it's very important, even though we think we might have years ahead of us. What we do today is going to impact tomorrow
significantly,
dramatically. Yeah. Now, Crystal, I talked about this at the beginning, and I don't want to fail to mention this because I do think this is important, especially as you have grown this business. It has not been just a focus on Crystal's wealth building and the future. You have made it a priority to give back or support back into the community, and with, I think, nearly $10 million. And that is an incredible gift. But so what does that impact look like, though, on the ground? And tell us a little bit about that. And
the reality is that the work that I'm doing now, it's really work that can change someone's entire bloodline. Just the education alone. And when I say give back, like being able to get someone approved for life insurance, because not everyone is guaranteed an approval. There's some people that have $500,000. I'm able to give them $1 million worth of coverage for a couple dollars. Literally, that is empowering, because when you think of it, the one thing that's guaranteed in life is death, right? We all have a start date to when we come here into Earth, but we don't know our expiration date. We don't know when that day will be. And the reality is that when we do pass away, there's only one thing that we can transfer. And we are the ones that are able to choose what we transfer. You can either transfer debt or you can transfer wealth, but you can't do both. You have to make a choice. And when someone decides and to be able to actually go down this path of getting themselves insured or getting themselves educated, and even me giving them the information, because That is the key to actually being free or financially free, when you're educated on the benefits of how this can not only benefit you, but the next generation. When you look at the Rockefellers, for example, they're a very prominent family that their name rings bells still to this day. And even with the Rockefellers, they had the waterfall method. Every family member in the Rockefellers had a life insurance policy on themselves, and their beneficiary was the trust, which is another avenue of how you can be able to protect your wealth, having a trust. So for me, in terms of giving that back, I am super blessed to be able to do that, because we're in a society where people take. We're in a society where we're constantly with people trying to take. They're trying to get you to do that, but there's not a lot of giving. And for me, I'm a firm believer that in order to receive, you must give back. Whether that's in value, whether that's with your tithes, whether that's with the income that you have to be able to give back to others. Because I never forget when I was in some of my hardest times where I was uneducated. I wasn't financially literate. My income wasn't where I wanted it to be. And if you don't have the empathy, always have that empathy and that humility to still remember that version of yourself, you're lost. Because you just as quick as someone builds wealth and they're able to be successful, if you don't have gratitude, if you don't give back, or if you're not humble, you can lose all of those things that you've gained just because you're so focused on you. You're so focused on, yeah, Crystal making money. But for me, it's not about me making money. Of course, making money is attached to it, but it's more so about how many people can I impact, right? How many lives can I change? Because the reality is that we're talking about human beings. We're talking about actual people here. We're not talking about cars. We're not talking about material. We're talking about us. And for me, giving back over $10 million in wealth, it's empowering to me, because I wasn't blessed with the opportunity to receive this education at a young age, but I'm grateful that I received it. Some people go their entire lives without getting access to certain information, which to me is really sad, because to know is to be free. The more you know and the more that you're aware, you're like, I want to give back. I want to give people the opportunity to be able to get this information, because once you have it, you now have to choose what you do with it. And for me, giving the information, giving the wealth,
Yeah.
giving all of these things, that's just, it's the most beautiful thing. And I think I learned that from teaching. Teaching, although I didn't want
Yeah.
to be a teacher, teaching allowed me to develop certain skill sets that I need, or I didn't realize I needed, in being an entrepreneur. For example, patience. Even now, I look back, I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
believe I taught children for 7 years. It's almost like it was like a different lifetime for me, because I was super young, and some interesting children that I experienced, but they were amazing. But they taught me patience. They taught me the ability to how to relate information in a way that's clear, regardless of where your understanding is. Because I come across people where some people are more versed in their understanding of certain terminologies, and some people are not versed. And I'm able to diversify the way that I deliver information so that it's clear, right? There's no gaps in the what you understand. So I really see it as a blessing, and it's something that I'm going to continue to do. And my plans are to also add on a law degree, because I still want to do that. And this business has allowed me to see ways I can use that degree to my benefit. There's estate planning, like I said, trust. There's trademark law,
Mhm.
protecting your ideas and from someone stealing it from you as you're building something. So there's different avenues there that are allowing me to give back all of this wealth and all of this knowledge to the community. And I think that if I continue to do that, it will only make me grow better as a person, and also allow my income to grow, because income follows identity. If you are not growing as a person, you're not personally developing, right? Your income is going to be a reflection of that. And as long as I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly giving back, I'm a firm believer that the universe and God will return all of those things to me tenfold.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with your desire to educate and inform. I similarly, and I do recognize your background in teaching prepared you for that. Even as I entered real estate, it was so important to me that I take kind of my own experiences and the different times I had done a transaction and something just didn't feel right. But it's what you don't know that you don't know. There's so much that you don't know. And you're kind of following whoever you've selected to help you, and you're trusting that they're guiding you correctly. But there are moments when you're like, this doesn't feel right, or I'm not sure about this. And so when I entered in to real estate, it was with the intention too that I use it as a tool in a ministry to really help educate people. I didn't want them to get to that table, that closing table, and still have a laundry list of confusion and doubts and questions. I wanted them to sit there and go, I am confident that I have researched this, I've made the right decision. And it wasn't just a one-time transaction, let's just get this client done. It was like a lifetime of educating, because then they are going to return to you hopefully as their source, their trusted resource, bring family, bring others. And so with that is the ability to not just get rich for Meredith, but to grow a business, to grow a pattern of a way to do business. And then within that also, I can keep giving back to families in need or helping, but it's a cycle. And we're not put on this earth to just focus on ourselves. And we've been given a purpose and a divine purpose in that to love one another and to help one another and to grow one another. And so all of that I resonate with, especially in our businesses as business women, to teach them and teach others so that then they can continue that for another generation and to use their finances wisely. So I love all of that. Is there any one particular story? I know you probably have many, but any client story that just was so powerful to you as you went and have started your business in this?
That's a great question. I let me see. I would say that I've experienced a situation where it wasn't with me directly, but one of my business partners, and it's always eye opening. One of my business partners, so there's two stories, but I'll make them both quick. So one of my business partners, he actually experienced having to go through back surgery. He was an engineer and he had to go through back surgery and he couldn't work for about 6 months. He was in the business, he did the business part time. And because he got a policy, he was able to get a lump sum check from the insurance company. So that was eye opening for me because I'm like, oh, wow, this is really real. Because sometimes you have your skepticisms when going into something new. You're like, does this really work? Because when I first heard the information about insurance, I was like, there's no way that I went to Spelman. I have a bachelor's degree. I thought so highly of myself. I'm like, I should have known this information. And because most of us that have certain backgrounds, and when it comes to education, if we don't learn, we don't hear about something, we almost like it's almost a skepticism that comes with, is this true? Can I really do this? Is this something, until you actually see it happen with someone? So that was the first example. And the second example is that we had a client which we were able to help him get insurance for his child. So one of the things that I leveraged coming into this business was my background in teaching, because I had a lot of credibility with the parents of the children that I taught, because my school that I taught my kids since they were in kindergarten. I had them in kindergarten, then I had them in first grade. The way that the school was set up, I was my kids' teachers every year, and then they had other different types of teachers. So I leveraged the relationships with those parents, and some of the parents are my clients today, and their children have life insurance policies. The IULs, where you were able to get a savings account. So we had one of the clients who was a parent. He had a policy on his child, $100,000 policy on his child, and his child drowned. This actually happened recently. His child actually drowned and died. And he reached back out to see if his policy, just making sure his policy was enforced, and it was. And we're in the process of actually filing a claim to get him paid out almost $75,000. They won't compensate for the passing of your child, but that money is going to help him take care of the arrangements, of course, and give him a peace of mind. Situations like that situation was touching, because most of us don't think of children dying. People are like, yeah, I don't need insurance on my child. Children can die. They're not immortal. And that was touching for me because I taught children. I didn't teach older kids. I taught 3, 4, 5, 6, like babies. And to imagine a child dying, to me, is just heartbreaking. Imagining anyone dying is heartbreaking, but a child, we don't expect children to just pass away like that, but it is something that can happen and has happened before. And it was sad because I'm like, wow, I can't imagine. I don't have kids yet. I do want children, but I can't imagine being in a situation where my child dies and God forbid I don't have insurance on them. That's going to be that's going to be a double traumatic situation. One, for the death, and two, for the financial hardships that I would have to experience from the unexpected death of my child if I'm not financially prepared to take on that responsibility. Not only that, my mom actually lost a child before I was born. She had a child and the baby died at birth. And I just think about death as so unexpected. It's something that we'll all have to experience at any point in time of our life, but there's no way to prepare emotionally for it. But you can prepare financially for it by getting yourself educated. And I think those stories were super touching for me because it can happen to anyone,
Yeah.
honestly and truly.
Yeah, and then like you said, in those moments, there's so many other factors of emotions that are going on, and then you
Yeah.
have the impact of financial that comes, and it can just seem
Yes.
like an overwhelming,
Yes.
crushing pressure in that. Crystal, you've talked about legacy. What does wise legacy though mean to you personally and professionally, and how have you experienced that in your life?
Yeah, I think wise legacy, when I hear that, I think it really I think about being informed. I think of being aware. I think of being educated in terms of how to build something not only for the now, but for the future. Because when you think of legacy, I think of your last name, right? Will the things that you've done live beyond your existence? Will your last name be remembered? Who are you? What impact will you leave, right? What informed decisions will you make that allow your last name to be remembered, not only for you, but for your children? Will your children be proud of the type of life that you've been able to give them? Because these are things that many people don't really think about. So when I think of wise legacy, I really think of the ability to be educated, to be able to give yourself the grandest of opportunities, to be able to put yourself in a position to build a true legacy, right? For your last name, to build a legacy that lives years and years beyond your own physical existence, because we won't be here forever, but our name can live on if we're wise, right? Literally and figuratively about our education and decisions we make with the education and the information that we receive. Because it's not just about receiving the information, it's about your execution. What will you do with that information? Will you be someone that's just a receiver of information? You just take notes and that's it? Or will you be somebody that actually implements, that actually executes, that actually takes action with the information that you're given? Because it's a blessing. It's a blessing to receive information. It's a blessing to be aware of certain things, because there are so many people out there that live in a world where their perspective is so limited because of their exposure or lack of exposure to certain information. And being wise, a wise legacy, it's one that's informed, it's one that's educated, it's one that's calculated, it's one that's prepared to be able to make the proper decisions to build something that will live on beyond your physical existence in this generation and the generations to come.
Yeah. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, the Bible says, and it's so true, because
Yes.
that name, the impression that people have of us, what we've done with our, like I talked about, daily decision making,
Yes.
that does impact the future. It is all so important, and our life is a vapor.
Yes.
And certainly you understand that in the insurance, it's a vapor that vanishes quickly. And so we have just a short window of time to make the right decisions, to make wise decisions. And the foundation on which we're doing that, and making sure first and foremost of eternity and our
Yes.
relationship and spiritually with God, and then how we apply that outwardly to others and helping them and educating them and loving and living life here to our fullest stewardship. So it's such a neat conversation to have with you too, and how that relates. I recently saw you take stage and win a recognition and award and give a speech. Can you tell me a little bit about what that honor was and that moment for you in your business? Because certainly that seemed to be a very significant moment of your business.
Yeah, so in my company, we're a heavily competitive company. We compete, of course, nicely, but we compete, and we're heavily incentivized. Of course, most of us are incentivized as much as there's a negative. Sometimes there's a negative connotation on being incentivized, but we're always working towards something with an outcome in mind. So there was a competition in the company to where you had to reach a certain promotion in order to qualify to speak on stage at our convention, which was just past August in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Arena. And I hit that promotion. I became a broker in the industry, worked very hard to become a broker. And from the moment that they announced that if you got promoted to be a broker, you'll be on stage, that was the incentive enough for me to put in the work that it required in order to accomplish it. And once I accomplished it, it was like, oh my God, now I have to plan to what am I going to say on stage because now the time is here. And it was very exciting. It was very nerve wracking because I had never spoke to that large amount of crowd. Months prior, I had also qualified to speak on stage at another event, but it was had about 2,000 people. This event had roughly 10 to 15,000 people in the arena. And if anyone knows me from when I was growing up, Crystal was not someone that was outspoken. Crystal was someone that was always shy. I stood in my little corner. I didn't like attention, and even to this day, I really don't. I'm still that girl internally. But this business has taught and allowed me to grow my confidence, to learn how to speak in public, to conquer some of my biggest fears because you can't be a scaredy cat and have your own business. You can't be afraid, right? I'm a firm believer in faith over fear. And being able to accomplish that, I was able to fly my mom out, my sisters out to Las Vegas to be able to see me speak because one of the biggest things that mean the most to me is support. People that are able to support me. And I'm not talking about financially, but just your presence. I'm a firm believer that support is free. So it did a lot for me. And it was empowering because I got to share my story on stage. People were able to hear my story about where I was from, my background, how I got into this industry, and this idea of that we experience struggles all across the board, and I said a quote in my speech, and the quote related to this idea that God did not remove the Red Sea, right? The Red Sea was there, but he parted it. He made a pathway for us to be able to get to the other side. And it was a metaphor for a lot of the experience that I've encountered in my life. All of the challenges that I've had to deal with, there was always a pathway, something that was leading me to the next version of myself. And it just, I conquered another fear of myself going on that stage, even though I was afraid. The feedback I got from everyone that heard my speech, they were very empowered. They were very motivated. Even when I didn't look at myself, in that way, I was like, I was so nervous. I don't know how I sound, and it was really exciting. And I'm super excited to be able to do more of those because every time you conquer a fear of yours, it increases your confidence. Like, that wasn't so bad. What was I freaking out about? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But just having my mom and my sisters there to be able to witness it, and to just have their support meant the world to me. And it just showed me, and it shows me how, I'm constantly growing because in my mind, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This is, it was very nerve wracking, but very exciting at the same time. And, it just shows that when you work hard, you're super consistent, you're faith driven. There's nothing that's without reach or not within reach of your, your, your proximity, right? You can have anything that you want in this world if you first believe in your mind that you're able to receive those things and experience those things. So that convention was one of the best conventions that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching your speech. It was empowering. I think it was motivating seeing you walk on stage with your country flag.
Yeah.
It was a symbol of where you've come from and where you now are. You spoke to the point of being able to make decisions,
Yes.
and that sometimes that ability is so necessary and powerful for us. We can get crippled in fear and crippled with indecision, but the ability to go, I'm going to make mistakes. I don't know everything, but I'm going to keep learning, and I'm going to make the best possible decision I can based on what I know
Yes.
today and then tomorrow. And then yes, as you spoke on how God, he didn't remove, he doesn't often in our lives just take everything away. We all go through hardships, we all go through struggles, but within that he has promised us victory. He has promised us help, and it's not leaning unto our own understanding. It's in an acknowledgement of him. And then within that, he will make clear our paths and as all of that. And certainly I resonate so much with you and your journey and bringing my own journey as a woman business and what experiences have led me here, what our desires are to teach others and to help others and to give back. And I would love for you, just as we wrap up, I want you, of course, to share where people can find you and get more information. And I would love you just to share one final bit of wisdom or information that might help someone else that helped you as you grew this business of your own. So I'd love for you to kind of wrap it up with that, Crystal, and then also share where people can find
Yeah,
you.
most definitely. My biggest advice for people, and this can be anyone, is to always get a mentor. I think that a lot of times we think that we're alone in life, in business, whatever it is, in our relationships. And I think that having a mentor, someone who's there that has more experience than you, that can guide you, that can give you direction, is super pivotal when it comes to your success in anything that you want to do. Because the reality is that everyone needs a mentor. Everyone needs guidance. Everyone needs direction, right? In order to know, what do I do? What don't I do, right? You can learn from the mistakes of others. In addition to that, I also think reading books, right? Reading books is one of the easiest ways to borrow someone else's experiences. When I read a book, I look at it as a blessing because I'm blessed with the opportunity to read something and learn something from someone else's perspective without me having to necessarily experience those things myself. And books allow you the opportunity to be able to do so. And there's a couple books that I actually like. There's a book called Let Them. It's a green covered book that I recently read that I like. And then there's a book that's called Think and Grow Rich, another amazing book. And then one of the most, I think, beginner friendly books for people that are becoming entrepreneurs or really getting into finances, whether it's in real estate or whatever industry, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a really good book because it starts to open your mind about just the psychology of where you are at in the four quadrants of where you are at in terms of like your income and where you want to be. Sometimes many of us think we're here, but we're actually here. Sometimes we think we're a business owner, but I'm like, I'm I think I'm still self-employed. Like we don't realize that until we get exposed to this other layer of levels. So those are three books that I would recommend, and getting a mentor. As far as people being able to find me on any platform, so I have Facebook. My Facebook is Crystal Hughes. Crystal spelled the normal way, and my last name is Hughes, like Langston Hughes. My LinkedIn is the same thing. You can search up Crystal Hughes, and then the only thing that is a little different in terms of finding me is my Instagram. My Instagram has a little splash of like where I'm from. And so my Instagram is Guyanese.goddess. So that's spelled Guyanese dot GAWDESS. You can also put my name in Instagram and it should bring up my profile. But those are the three major platforms that I'm on. My contact information is on there, my email address, phone number. But thank you again, Meredith, for allowing me the opportunity to be on your platform. I am really excited. I enjoyed our conversation. And I definitely look forward to future collaborations because little do you know, I also was interested in real estate as well. Yeah, no, I think I just was overwhelmed with all of the nuances of it. And I don't think I ever came across someone that I felt confident to be able to educate me in it, because they didn't seem like they knew what they were doing, for lack of better terms. But I'm extremely honored to be on your platform. I definitely enjoyed our conversation, and look forward to future conversations with you, because this was the first time I've ever done a podcast. I've never done one before, and it was exciting. I loved your energy, and everything happens in alignment with God, and that's essentially it.
Yeah, I love that, Crystal. And your story is very powerful. I am always intrigued by people who come to a new place, a new country, who work hard, who are giving back and have learned, and nothing's been handed to you. You have certainly worked hard in your path, and you've also created powerful reminders that not just about financial wealth and the insurance, but the wealth of purpose and freedom and impact. And I commend you for that, Crystal, and for trying to make a difference in our world and being a light in that and educating. And it started way back when God shifted your plans and he allowed you to become the most important and powerful person in educating young people who, maybe we look at and we think, oh, they've got such a hard life ahead, but for so many of them, they've got such a beautiful story, and they teach us actually so much about living in life. And you had the ability to spend years and experience with that, and I think that's just made you a stronger businesswoman and individual today. So I'm excited for people to connect with you, Crystal, and certainly to connect again here as we're able. So thank you again for what you're doing and for joining me today.
Of course, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Wise Move. I hope today's episode provided you with the tools and insights you need to confidently navigate your real estate, community, and life journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and please share this podcast with friends and family who are making their own moves. Stay connected for more real estate insights, and remember, every great move starts with a wise move.